So it's 7:30, so I think everybody who's going to be here is here. And so both Richard Kürschner and Greg Baker have presentations tonight. And I think, Richard, since you got back to me first, let's start with the string diagrams.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this sharing to work. There we go. Hopefully you can see me at this point.
I see an Excel spreadsheet, so I think we're good.
And annotate. Give me a moment here. Let's see, where is my spotlight? There we go. So if you were to go through the requirements for the chief dispatcher, which I've been doing since we can't actually go and operate on other people's railroads anymore, I discovered that you needed to create a string diagram. Officially, they say you need to start with a spreadsheet, which is what I've got here. This is, as Jeff alluded, somewhere in the Willamette Valley. Nobody knows quite where, but we know it's between Portland and San Francisco, somewhere in there. There is a branch that heads off to the scenic tiny port of Lynnsport. But otherwise, it's your basic timetable. I did go through a lot of work to set these schedules up appropriately in ways that a train leaves San Francisco at such and such time or arrives at San Francisco at such and such time. That's your basic time distance equations that I'm not going to go through. I came up with a basic schedule, created a timetable for it, and then I needed to create, there we go, this time chart. String diagram is what I hear they're called. I've always just called them dispatcher graphs. And personally, I don't understand why railroads used this when they could have just as easily drawn one of these. This is so much easier to look at and understand what you're doing. One thing before you get worried that this is all about timetable and train order, it's not. This is a useful diagram for any situation. If you're not familiar with these, this essentially says that at 7 a.m., train 299 leaves Carlton Forks heading for Lynnsport. It gets there somewhere before 10 a.m. 7 a.m. also, train 2 enters the layout from South Portal, moves until it gets to Carlton Forks, does a station stop, and then proceeds on to the north staging. Fairly simple. Red, I've decided, is going to be first class, blue is second class, and green is third class. So what I wanted to do was create this in a way that wasn't like I did when I was growing up, where I'd get a graph paper out and pieces of cardboard to have templates for 70-mile-an-hour trains, etc. That was a lot of work. This turns out to be fairly easy. You start out by taking all the information out of here, out of your timetable, and listing it out in a basic table. I use distances of what I call real miles. If you wanted to use the scale mile concept with fast time, that's fine. If you wanted to use feet, that's fine. It's just that it's got to be, whatever numbers you're going to be working with. Listed out my stations, listed out their milepost points. I did do southbound as another block. You don't have to. You could just as easily continue them out here. I just found it easier to do it this way. You don't have to have southbound reading up. I did it that way because that's the way I took it straight off of the other timetable. Branch lines, I show it on exactly the same graph as the main line. I honestly don't know how a real railroad would use a string line to know if they would do it this way. I can imagine a busier branch line that actually shares mile markers probably would not want to do that. But it works for me, so I did it this way. You notice in some of these, like Carlton Forks, Nigel, College Station, these are all have two names there. They've got the same milepost twice. This is to allow us to do a station stop. That's the brief stops here where it's waiting for another train or unloading passengers, that kind of work. So you can, that's the only way to do it. On the branch line, since it's fairly lightly traveled, I didn't bother giving Nurses Creek 2 spaces because it does have a passing siding, more of a runaround, but it could be used as a passing siding. It just wasn't worth it in my case. One thing to note is the time scale on a lot of railroads crosses midnight. If you don't want to, you don't have to have it cross midnight. You could start your railroad at midnight with no trains running. I didn't want that. I wanted trains running at midnight. It was the right thing to do in this case. So what you have to do in these cases is, and you'll notice I use 24-hour time. Normally you just put in the time that's at those stations. In the case of crossing midnight, I typed in at the previous station 23:59 because that's where it was literally. It shows it internally as this one. But for crossing midnight, you type in 24. In this case, I would have typed in 2408. It doesn't show it that way, but it is in there 2408. And you'll notice that the format up here changes. I haven't figured out yet the right way to get anything different here. That's a little down the way, but it's working for me now. So for just after midnight, it's 2408. Going on to 1 a.m., 2502 is what you have to type in here. And if your train went on further, 2600, 2700, that's how you end up getting it to cross midnight gracefully. Otherwise, you have to break this out as 2 separate trains and calculate where it is at exactly midnight, or you'll get a big jag across your diagram. This line will suddenly whoom back to the 0 marker. Doesn't look good. You don't want to do it that way. So that's what you can do. Just go ahead and start typing them in, get what you want. And right. So once you have these times, the key to this entire diagram is the scatter chart. That's this guy right here. You create a scatter chart, put it where you want it, and right click, select data, add. Series name, take the train number, which is what this is up here. This doesn't actually appear on the graph, but it will appear in that dialog box that I showed you just before. You'll see that in a minute. So click there. For the X values, that's the time values down here on the bottom. Just click and drag. Accept it. And then the distance values, the Y values, again, click and drag. And done. It's there. You've created your first string. A lot easier than it was when I was a kid doing this. If you need to do another one, which of course we do, pick another one. And it's just exactly more of the same. There's no other real work involved here. Everything else is just, and you've got 2 strings. If you have the branch line, for example, let's get something going the other direction. You'll notice I've got some gaps in the data here. It doesn't matter, works just fine. Again, it's click and drag, but make sure you're only dragging as far as you need here because, excuse me, what you need to do then is drag just as far over on your distance. And there's our, it's going the wrong way. I must have set this up wrong. Oh, well. Anyhow, the other one then is the crossing midnight. Let's go here. So we'll add another crossing midnight. And you'll notice that this time scale right now runs from midnight to 4 a.m. As I said, it's all the same thing over and over. It's a lot like wiring a layout. Putting in one wire is really easy. So wiring a layout is a lot of really easy work. And you see here, we have the train that crosses midnight. Its partner, for example, and you can see a crossover here, is 252. Come down. And you see them intersecting. That's all there is to this entire the entire process, just more of it. So I'm not going to bore you with this. The graph itself, as you notice, as you do it, doesn't come out real neat and clean. So what you want to do is clean it up to some extent. The first thing is adjusting the, I said it wrong, adjust the y-axis. Let's go ahead, double click on the y-axis, right click on the y-axis, format it. And you notice the options are from milepost 0 to milepost 700. So let's change that down to 480 to 600. And it's a much easier, much cleaner way to see your graph. But the next thing I don't like about this is you notice, I say you've got all this empty space here. I'm not going to be running trains between, well, essentially 2 and midnight or 2 and 7 a.m. So we need to change the origin here. So again, click on the axis, right click. Where's my format? Format axis. Nope. Format axis, here we go. The thing to notice here is our bounds are 0 to 1.2. That's measured in days. I don't create this. This is the way Microsoft did it. It runs from 0 days through 1.2 days. So 6 a.m. is a much better starting point. That's a quarter of a day. 0.25 is what I'm trying to say there. And you notice it starts at 6. If I wanted, I could then change this a little bit to cut off the end. And I'm now, the graph covers the entire screen that I've got shown here. Next thing to change is these times. 6 o'clock is a great time to start, but who cares about 8:24, 10:48, etc. That is the units here. And this is a trial and error process, but through trial and error, and if you want, I could actually show you, but I'm not, I think I won't. I'll just go ahead and put in 0417, I believe is the magic number. Yes, it is. And you notice it is now every hour, which is a much easier schedule to read. From here, it's simply formatting, making this prettier. If you want to add title to it, you know, that's real easy. Chart title. And timetable. Well, I guess it'd help if I learned to spell. Good enough. The next one is, you notice there's only times over here. Not really, it's not as helpful as it could be. So I'm going to see about, yeah, let's pull this over some. Give me some blank space there. Go to insert. And there's my text box. And we'll say Linsport. You can go ahead and format that to your heart's content, but you can see what I'm doing here. I copy and paste, and I'll put in Nurses Creek. And it's no different for the train numbers. Just more of the same. And that's how you can get your chief dispatcher AP credit real easy. You don't have to go through all the calculations of how a particular speed looks on a graph. It's whatever it is. And if you decide that this is too wide for your dispatching table, you can shrink it down, and all the numbers just magically go back to where they should be. The slopes change fine. If you wanted to print it out really long, you can do that. Questions I can answer. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Richard. Did anybody have anything? And didn't see any hands go up, so let's go straight into Greg. Greg,
Can you hear me now?
we can indeed.
All right. Just brief introduction, just since I'm new back to the area, I guess. My name's Greg Baker, also known as Mountain Goat Greg. You'll see why in a bit. Anyways, model and HO scale, mostly SPNS and Great Northern. Moved here to Portland about a year and a half ago, and I work for, a transit agency that will go unnamed, but, it's the one up there on the wall there, if anyone can see that. So, anyways, today I'm going to turn this off for a second here, get this flipped around. Come on. All right. Unmute. There we go. Can everybody see that okay, Jeff?
No one else answered, but yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Everybody else went mute.
Trying to get this set up here, playing with my iPhone. So give me a second here.
This went so much better in rehearsal.
I know. I am a trained professional or something. Of course, you know, it's just like a layout. You know, it never works when you want it to.
If you want to find the bugs, invite the guests over.
Yep, exactly. Listen, guys. That's the guy right this time. Okay. There we go. Now we're cooking, right? You see me now? There we go. All right.
Looks good.
Looks good. So I make these little mini dioramas. We'll reach into here and see which one we pull out today. There's that. You can see a guy by himself out there on the track, changing out some ties. These are HO scale, measure about 2 inches by 2 inches, and come with these fancy decorative cases. Whee! Okay. So how I start is a little piece of plywood. This is 1/4 inch plywood. Hit it with a little black spray paint. Take that. This is my fun part. Now I get to make a mess. A little white glue. What's nice about working in something so small is you can do things like drag out the giant pile of dirt, put it in the dirt, throw some dirt on it. That whole section is done. Yay! So that's done. Got dirt on it. I'm going to let that one dry. It's like a cooking show. Watch this. That one goes away. I've got a whole nother one ready to go. So next thing I usually like to do is put a little static grass on. I mix up, this is matte medium and water, 50% mix. Dribble a little bit of that around there. I'm very, very exact in my work here, as you can see. It's years of planning. And working in such a small area, I can literally just dump the static grass right on there, shake it back off in the container, and you can see there it actually stands up a little bit. So with the static grass on, I then move on to adding some more details. So that one I'm going to set aside there and let it dry. So this one here, a little bit different shade, doesn't really matter. Just for fun here. Going to add a few of these. These are Silflor Tufts. Brand and style doesn't really matter. Just something to add. They come with a self-adhesive backing, but I don't trust it. So I use a little 100% white glue on the back there. Stick them on there. Gives a little depth. Works well in kind of any scenery application. Just adding a little bit more depth and give you some fancier little grass tufts there. Just to give you something else to look at. Helps visually, a little different color, a little different texture. If you go out in nature, even in a grass field, you're going to see a lot of different colors of grass and different shrubs and all sorts of goodies out there. So set that one aside. So on these, I kind of go 2 routes. I'll either add another layer of static grass, and I can do that by, this one's already got the little tufts on it, everything. I can hit that with some high quality dollar store hairspray, you know, perfect purdy. And I'll just sprinkle a little static grass on there. Just helps blend in color. Just adds a little bit something to it. The other thing I'll do is, instead of adding static grass per se, I'll add like a leaf material. So Knock makes a leaf material, Super Trees. I think even Woodland Scenics is offering some stuff. So this is just to add kind of the little bits and pieces that kind of stick on top. So nothing fancy, just totally random, but that gives you just one more layer of depth, and that just helps kind of tell the story and give you a little bit of place. So for these two, I've got pre-made bushes for one. See a little pre-made bush, and then I took these little trees from the Wish app, which are the crappiest little trees. It was $1 for I think 20 of them, and I painted them with camouflage brown, and then put a little bit of just the hairspray over the top, and then a little bit of this static grass over the top. I'm just trying to give them a little bit more life, a little bit more volume, and they come out pretty good for just little kind of scrub trees. So with those made, I'm going to go ahead and attach my shrub. And again, just white glue. This one I put a little path down the middle. I'll take the shrub. And the shrubs are just the polyfiber. I believe this is Woodland Scenics, just the green polyfiber. And then I take that and use that leaf material and the hairspray, and gives you a nice little bramble bush of some sort. Use your imagination. It's probably, if it's in Oregon, it's blackberries. So just the way it is. All right. For this one here, gonna go big, go big, drill a hole. We'll throw a tree on this one. CA is a little bit of an overkill, but since these are kind of somewhat portable, I want them to be somewhat strong. I'll just set the old tree in there. Boom. All right, so now we got a tree on this one. We got a bramble on that one. So I'm going to set these aside, let them dry, so they're not quite ready for prime time. So here's one I've recently finished up. So I've got 3 of those old trees on there. Got some grass. And now we need somebody to be hanging out on it. So use my pin vise here and drill a hole. On this one, there we go. And I use a lot of prizer figures that I've hand painted. So hey, I wrote an article about it in NMRA. You should look it up. Anyways, I start with just basic prizer figures. I cut them up, modify them, change them, hit them with primer. I've been using Vallejo paints. I just like them for this type of stuff. Do all the skin tones. Then I'll start kind of painting all of the other colors, shirt, pants, any of the other details. And then when I finish them out, add a little weathering, a little black wash over them. And they come out pretty darn good. They've got a nice patina to them, but they look like people. So for this one, get our special guest together here. So for this one, there we go. Our special Northwest friend there. We got our mini Prince Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And then what I do with them is I use a little double-sided tape and I put them onto these little, there's actually golf ball holders, golf ball displays. And this one's got a very surprised lady on it. And the old Bigfoot there. So that's that in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions on that?
Do you happen to remember which issue of MRH your figure painting was in?
My gosh, it's been, I'll have to look it up. I'll send it to you once I remember which one it was. It was a couple years ago, I think. Any other questions? All right.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Greg, what size drill bit did you use on that?
Whichever one fit. No,
no, look, this is a great way to learn scenery making if you don't already know. You're not going to get a whole lot of damage if you make a mistake.
yeah, and I've made plenty of mistakes. These are ones, I mean, I've been making these for about 2 years, and I actually just went back through and updated some of my older ones just because I just didn't like the way they looked. And as you grow as a modeler, you change your techniques and you learn new stuff.
Right.
So, but they make for good small scenes if you want to practice something or want to work on, so this one here, I weathered the track. I have the older ties and some of the other stuff that is great to have on a layout, but you're not going to get a lot of practice with it until you get to that point of your layout. So the other thing that's nice about these is, you've got a 2-inch by 2-inch or do a 4-inch or, just kind of scrap a piece of wood and you can practice weathering your ties and weathering your scenery and making some of these little shrubs and bushes. And, you're not out a whole lot of money. And if it looks good, it's kind of cool. And if it looks not good, you can just keep working on it until it either looks better or you just throw the whole thing away. So, but they're a lot of fun.
Ever figured out a way to do water on them?
I did. Where the heck did I do? I have these ones. So just did these actually today. Here's another, got a Bigfoot theme going on here. It's a lady Bigfoot. Look at that. So this is my new trick. Big water acrylics. This is sold at Tammy's and also the Whistle Stop. I don't get not a paid endorsement. It's this lovely snot color we'll go with. I don't even know what that is.
Snot works.
Yes, somewhere between, yeah. And then I picked up some of these little palette knives. You can see this one's been used. And it's just kind of this weird green pudding. And you set it on and just let it dry. And I didn't have to do any, you can see the water's edge here. I didn't do any masking or anything. That's just, I set it and, what is it? The Ronco, set it and forget it, or whatever it is. So that adds a nice little shimmer to them. I thought it was kind of cool to
what was
add a
that
little water to them.
product again?
It is MIG acrylic water for dioramas. And they have probably 20 different colors. They've got everything from Pacific Ocean blue to swamp brown to This is, yeah, slow river water. It's got kind of a green, mucky tinge to it. They've got running mud. They've got crystal clear water. So yeah, all sorts of stuff. I think they were under $20 for this container. And I'll show you what else I did with it here in a minute. But I've done a lot of stuff with it, and it's more than half full. So that's a fun little product. First time I used the stuff was recently, and I watched the video. It was kind of, you put the stuff on and you leave it. I'm like, okay, that's interesting instructions, but that's all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Short comment.
Yeah.
If you look on my blog on, I think it's SMA 11, I did a similar thing, although not exactly the same. But if you take your base and you make it like a table, 3-side or 4-side, 3-side, and then a top, in essence, to make it hollow, you can put a battery inside with a switch and you can light something up. And when I made mine, I actually had a specific purpose. I was making them for people who weren't in the hobby, to explain the kinds of things that we do. And so I would make a little scene that may have been representative or a reminder of a story that the person who was going to get it knew about, so that when they picked it up and looked at it, there was something about it that would remind them of the relationship, but also show them how modeling can be done at the same time. So it was a great gift. And by the way, it was a gigantic hit. But if you ever want to show somebody else that's not in the hobby what you do, it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I've showed a lot of people outside, just friends and family, and they always ask me about them. And I do some other ones too that are a little on the if you're a fan of like The Walking Dead, which is a zombie show if you don't know what that is. So nice guy out for a walk with his automatic weapon. Zombie. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. And the other thing I've noticed is there's a lot of stuff I've learned that's not model railroading specific that I've learned outside of the hobby. I got on Instagram and I followed a bunch of builders on there that build these like mini dioramas, and there's all sorts of little tips and tricks that I've never even heard of, and it's old hat for them, and nothing I've ever even seen in some publications for model railroading. So lots of different techniques and ideas, and that's where a lot of this MIG stuff, they swear by it, MIG ammo, and the other one's AK Interactive. It's the same, essentially the same stuff. So
The other thing that's really nice to add for the little scenes is flowers.
yeah, I've added some on, I don't have any here, but yeah, I get those Woodland Scenics little flower packs that no one seems to want to buy ever, and I'll dribble a few, yellow flowers or purple flowers or pink flowers on things just to give it a little bit of a pop of color.
So where are you getting those golf ball display cases from?
Michael's.
Oh, so it's not like you order 1,000 on eBay. Okay.
No, I just picked up, they're about $2-3 a piece, I think. I usually wait till they have like a online 30% off your online order sale, and I'll pick up a bunch of them at the same time. They have everything from, I think golf ball is the smallest. They've got a golf ball, 3 golf balls, softball, football, and then they've got some other kind of odd. They have one that says it's for like model cars and some other sizes. So, I mean, you can build some pretty neat little stuff. You don't have to buy the expensive, railroad ones that, since it says railroad on the side of it, they want an arm and a leg for. So I think one of the not done anything with it. This is one of my future projects. So that's a softball size. So that's quite a bit larger. I'd just say, what is it, 4 by 4 cube. So you could put in a house or track and a speeder shed or all sorts of little things there if you wanted to. So
Yeah, the football sized one sounds like it'd take up about a whole locomotive in HO scale.
yeah, I think they're at least a Jeep, probably most SDs. So
And a whole layout in N scale, Richard.
yeah, for 2 layouts in Z scale, you could do a double deck of them. All right. Should we move on to the layout there, Jeff?
Sure. Let's see what sent Walthers into paroxysms of joy.
Yes. So I need to kill this light. Ooh. Stand up here. I'm trying to do 3 things at once. So for those of you that don't know, Walthers held their first annual layout building contest. And the requirements were, hey, there we go, that's a little better. That it had to be 2 foot by 4 foot, and it had to have a backdrop. And the backdrop had to be, it was kind of weird, 18 inches, but it had to be up 3 inches off the back. I don't know why, it just was. So the other thing you had to do was you had to get their starter kit that came with the sunrise feeds, this little warehouse doodad thing, the grain bin, the elevator leg, the grain dryer, and then I think this forklift and a bunch of sacks and some other random stuff. So you had to get that. I purchased this surge bin here, and then I had, I'm a model railroader, so I have like tons of cars and locomotives and other stuff. So mine is based loosely on the line between Spokane, Washington and Moscow, Idaho. I lived in Lewiston for 5 years. Used to drive to Spokane a lot. So that's kind of my inspiration. It's kind of somewhere along the Palouse is what I say. It's the milepost I used is right near Oakdale, Washington. So it's fully detailed and scenic. Included signage, weathering. See if I can get you in here close enough to see the. So I've got a couple of guys there out front of the old feed and seed store. Got a farmer up here planting the field. Even though you don't see it, I put speed limit signs and fully wired up the transformer, and this is the back side of the building there. We've got forklift operator, and if you ever operated a forklift, he is going down the ramp because you always operate backwards on a forklift. Barely see it, but I do have some interior details there. Got a guy patiently waiting for him to finish loading his truck. Looks like he's, really helping out a whole bunch. And then I used signs out of a GN Historical Society, one of their publications. So all the signs are GN style signs, and I painted up and did the GN dot, and then the milepost markers there are all GN style. The bridge, the trestle is scratch built based on SP&S standard plans. And then this is the creek. The first time I used that MIG stuff was in this creek here. So that's just gooped on there and then went back in with those little tufts and kind of filled it all in. And backdrops
How
hand
deep
paint.
is that, by the way, that creek? Did you, how much material did you use with the MIG?
It's very, very shallow. It's not even,
Okay.
not even a 1/16 of an inch deep. It's kind of like a shiny gloss on top of the dirt. So I put it on decently thick, but it kind of absorbs a little bit, but it keeps its shine, and it's you can put texture into it. So as it goes from kind of the calmer section here, the wider section, and then goes a little faster under the bridge here, that's all just poking at the stuff as it dries. I didn't go in with like Mod Podge or anything. And then just added details, added a bunch of stuff to the standard. I added a door and an opener and a ladder and whatnot to the Butler bin and whatnot. All the wires are strung on the structure there. I went in and distressed all the plastic before I painted it. So it's actually a technique that using wood modelers do. They'll lift boards. So I did the same thing on plastic and then went along the bottom and kind of rotted out the boards, took a flat blade and just shoved it in there and cut it off. And then, but that's 90% just paint. So, yeah.
So what is the scenery base?
The scenery base, where all the track is plywood. The rest of it is all pink foam. I cut most of it with a hot wire tool. And then like my basalt cliffs are all Sculptamold. That's all Sculptamold. That hill's all Sculptamold. This whole back, well, that's painted over there. Then that's Sculptamold all the way across there. And then over that, I use real dirt and then static grass and static clumps or clumps of static grass. I actually made my own for this project. So all the ones you see here are all just made my own clumps and stuck them on and glued them down. Track's all microengineering. Actually, let me back up. The mainline track is Pico because that's what they gave me, and the switch is a Pico switch I had. And then the other tracks are microengineering. And what's nice about working at something so small, I weathered all the track and distressed all the track at my workbench, and just when it was done, I just set it down and used it.
Say, Greg, could you explain a little bit how you rusted out the roof of the shed in the foreground there?
Yeah, that's all acrylic paint. It's Vallejo paint. I painted it just primer gray, the whole thing primer gray. And then I took three different, I think I had an orange, a brown, and like a yellow ochre color. And I just stippled it on. And then once I'd stippled it working from the bottom up, I then dragged the brush down or up the, just trying to draw the paint back and forth. And then over the top of that, when it was all kind of the way I liked it, I found this craft paint that has just a little bit of a sparkle to it. So you can kind of see where it shimmers just a little bit. I took that craft paint and just lightly dry brushed the metal, and that blended everything together.
Thank you.
I guess that's my next clinic I have to do, Jeff, right? Distressing and weathering buildings.
That would work for me. It's amazing is how you got that Scene Master forklift to look that good.
Yeah, that was, it's, I think, 3D printed, or at least they're resin cast. And I completely disassembled it and did a bunch of work just to make it look decent. I mean, the main thing is fixing the guy or the operator, because it was pretty goofy, the guy that was on there before. So looked like the guy who was driving it had rigor mortis had set in, and we could only go one direction.
David, you had a question?
Well, yeah, Greg. First of all, very, very impressive. Your basalt cliffs really set the scene. Really, kind of nail the area geographically. I got a question. You're using real dirt. Are you a dirt sifter?
Yes.
Anything you
The
care to share
dirt,
about?
the dirt.
Go ahead.
So when I travel, I used to travel a lot for work, and I would carry Ziploc bags with me and little Ziploc containers. And I'd be like, oh, that looks like some good dirt. And I'd pull off to the side of the road and take my hand and shovel a bunch of it into a Ziploc bag and then drive off. So I've got, let's see if I can find. So this is some of my dirt. So this is some sand I found on the side of a road somewhere. Some of this is commercial products. Some of this is stuff I pulled up along the Oregon trunk. Just some, and then I've just sorted the stuff out, and I've got 4 or 5 different screens, and just kind of go through the stuff and play around with it and mix it together and see what I come up with. So it's so this one's got a lot of debris in it. And it's kind of a really light. I think it's a pumice material. But I'm mostly going for color. I'm not trying to match. You know, if you pull sand from the beach, it doesn't look like sand once you put it on a layout. But there's other material that you pull up that, you know, this sand will actually look like a good dirt road, or that dirt looks like sand and things like that. So it's more about color for me than it is about, you know, matching the dirt I found to the area I model.
Excellent. Thank you.
So an example of that is like down here on the bottom here, kind of hard to see, but you see the color shift. So you have the older material here that's full of dirt and garbage and crap. And then as the railroads dumped fresher, cleaner ballast, you can see that there's cleaner, better material up here, although it's worn and used, being as it's a branch line. But doing things like that help kind of tell the story and show what goes where.
Awesome. Very, very
Any
nice.
other questions?
On your basalt rocks, did you mold them off of the basalt, or did you just carve them the way they
So
look?
that is sculptamold rubbed against the side of the hill, and then I take a putty knife, one of the smaller flexible ones, and just kind of make those vertical. So I'll take it along and jab it along here, and then I kind of drag it down and knock down that top material. And then when I'm putting the dirt on, I soak the whole area and let that dirt kind of naturally fall wherever it may. And it gives that kind of pillar look where it's got the broken down pillars. Like through here, I've carved a seam, and that was a layer on purpose, but a lot of it's just kind of, you know, the feel of it. Because the more I've tried to make it look like basalt and like really carve basalt, the more it looks like a bunch of pencils. And I was trying to avoid that.
Looks real great. I mean, I lived in Palouse for a while, so I've in that country and took geology at Washington State, and we studied columnar joining and all the cliffs and that along the snake there.
Any other questions?
What did you use for the lines on the power?
That is Easy Line.
Okay.
Used to be Berkshire Junction, but I'm not sure if that's still who owns the company. The telephone lines are all just the single strand. I think mine's charcoal. The phone line, or the lower cable, trying to catch it, is actually, I took 3 of the Berkshire line easy lines and wrapped them together to get that thicker line. So I know they sell a thicker version of their stuff. I just was kind of on a time crunch, and I actually kind of like how it looks, because if you go out and look at that phone cable stuff, it actually looks more like a bundle of stuff kind of mushed together.
Frequently is. Did you actually wire up that 3-phase transformer?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And that's all easy line too.
That's masochism, man.
Yeah, I was going to give him a hard time about not being correct, but actually it looks pretty correct.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Hey, I followed the instructions that came with it, so I wish it might be one of the few people in history that's actually read those instructions in the Walthers catalog.
Wow.
But
Okay. So, Greg, Richard, we thank you. I think we'll save Richard's 3D clinic for a later date. And if, for those of you who are here, please go out and bug your friends that are also members of the division about what they just missed, and tell them that we'll be doing this again next month at some point. I'll probably send out word in about a week. And I'd really like to see more people show up.